Investing in real estate. Many people think you should do it in your own city, but if you look at the numbers, you will immediately see that it is not sustainable. In most cases, you're very likely to be watching this video from a large city where the cost of living is much higher. You're probably part of the people that can barely afford a house in most cases. Some of you are not, some of you are. So if you have the dream of becoming a real estate investor, the best way to do it probably is to look outside of your city. Yes, you will learn the skill of delegation because you cannot be present there all the time, but it definitely enables you to invest much more because you're going into markets that are much more, let's say, affordable and easier to enter in. I'm the perfect living example of this. Although I started in the city where I live in Leesburg, Virginia, I then expanded outside of Leesburg, mostly Central Virginia, and one of them is West Virginia. This is a series that I'm starting. I'm already doing this in Italian. In Italian it's called Catching the Golden House. I still have to figure out a name for this one here. Basically, it is a series where, based on the comments of the people on YouTube, they will give me a specific market to look in. I will do a market research and try to find the best house that could yield the highest returns, a mix between rental income and appreciation income, guys. In this case, I'm going to start with something that I choose because the series does not exist yet. This is a market I invest in, which is Charleston, West Virginia. It is the capital. And in today's video, we're going to do first the whole research of the market to then jump into Zillow and look at some houses that could potentially yield some really good returns. It should be good to record right now. This one here is Charleston. We're going to start with population. The population of Charleston, guys, is around 48,000 people, smaller than many cities in Virginia. However, it's still a fairly okay city in terms of size. If you look at trends, however, it is negative. But here's my opinion on this. Okay, if you look at the past couple of years, we saw an uptick, people moving in, which means that people are seeing the cost of life part of Charleston, also on top of being a nice city. So if you look at pictures right here, it looks like a typical American old school city. We have some sites here. Is it a dangerous city? It is improving, but it's still a dangerous city, but so many cities in America. The thing is, if you look at the last uptick here in the population trend, you can see that people were moving in. Most of the population uptick is not births, but it's people moving in because of the cost of living. Which is funny because Charleston is pretty far from everything else. However, Charleston is the capital, so it definitely can attract jobs, especially in the public sector. And also universities. Why universities? It has a few universities. It's smaller universities, but they're fairly affordable. I saw that rates here are $30,000 and under compared to many other universities across America, which, if you look at private colleges, is still a fairly good number. If you go to New York, we're around $40,000. So it definitely is much more affordable. Let's look at the economy. We know that we have a labor force that is mostly employed as US average, which is good, especially in a city like this one. I would have expected unemployment to be much more shit. And if you look at wages, yes, it is below US general wage, but the cost of living is also much below. The average cost of a house is $136,000 compared to 400 and plus K, that is the US average. So yes, here it says that the cost of living is 10% below average, but if you look just at housing, the housing will be at least 4 times cheaper compared to the US average, which is very good news if you are both an investor and somebody who is potentially moving there, because it also is reflected in rents. University data is right here. Let's jump now straight up into the rental properties, guys. Before that, let's also say that I believe that we will see an uptick in people moving in these smaller cities in the future, because I believe that as cities become more and more unsustainable to live in, and as we still are keeping some of the work from home stuff, I believe that more and more people will be able to afford a much better lifestyle by moving out to cities such as this one. Hopefully, I hope that cities like Charleston would invest in bringing people in by bringing some amenities, doing some nice things, investing in the cities and making them much more fun than they are right now. But that's a trend that we gotta hope for. We don't know if it will actually happen. Charleston, West Virginia, Zillow. Just by putting prices low to high, you see prices that are impossible to think of. These are houses that are not livable, guys. So this is not what we're gonna look at in the first place. 10 grand, 16 grand, 28 grand, 28 grand, 29 grand, 30 grand. So for less than a new Jeep Wrangler, you can have multiple houses in some cases, which is nuts. In today's video, I will tell you this. I already bought a house here. I actually bought a duplex that I paid 40 grand in this area right here that I rent out net after everything for around $600 a month, which yields an impressive return. And looking at prices here, I know that in the past 3 years, home values here increased too. That house is probably worth now 80 grand on top of yielding me that return, and it happened in just 3 years. So probably because of people moving in, investors coming in, and the general, let's say, sentiment of the market, I believe that that's why home prices went up also in this area. Anyway, what are we looking for here, guys? The general rules in real estate is the 1% rule, or making at least 10%, which is the opportunity cost. We're gonna look a little bit of everything. 1% rule, what is the 1% rule? The 1% rule is that if the house that you're trying to buy potentially could rent at 1% a month of the value of the house that you're paying, the home value, then it's probably a good investment. This is a general rule. It doesn't always work. There are other costs that nobody talks about, but this is one of them. The second one is the opportunity cost. If you leave your money invested in the S&P 500 by doing absolutely nothing, you could expect in the next 30 years a 10% return. So your goal is to generally beat that 10% return to make the investing in real estate worth it. So I'm gonna mostly look at these two prices. Now we know that the entry level price here is fairly affordable. Even if you're broke, you can find financing for such low numbers. It is harder to finance though a house for such low price, but you can definitely see this as much more affordable compared to a place like New York. Anyway, guys, let's look at houses. Prices range. The question is, what is the barely minimum that you can have that is livable, rentable? This is 70 grand. This is not livable. Seems like somebody died in this house. I wouldn't even look at it. However, looking around, you can find something that is better shape. This is 85 grand. This has new carpets, new floors. The kitchen, yeah, is not super modern, but 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 1,200 square feet. This could be something very interesting. It is also located on this side of the town, which is closer to much more expensive areas. It might not be as nice as this side, but it is more affordable. Of course, the closer you are to the better areas, which are this one here, if you look at prices, we're around 200, 500, $1 million. And this one here, which is still 200K, potentially you could know that expansion is coming your way. We have bigger, let's say, dividing points, like this big road here. Normally when you have a bridge or something, it could be a dividing point between a nice area and a bad area. However, when expansion happens, it comes from the more expensive area. And this one could be a good potential area. Also considering that the college is on the other side right here, you have a bridge. It is not very well connected, but it could potentially be good. The house that I bought is right here. So this is an area I do not know, but the home price I really liked. Let's go back into this one. 85K for this area. Now let's look at rents. I know that a 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom house I could rent in the area for $770. Let's look at the condition of this one. Fairly similar thing. We have new carpets, a fairly new kitchen, which looks really nice. $770. Put for rent 5 days ago. I believe that we can get $800. If you look at something else, this is a much nicer area, but it looks much older. Ooh, it's actually still nice. Looking at the rental market, there's not too much. This is $950, good condition. This is a typical design that I would do on my houses when I fix them up. This could be a good house. So let's go back on selling. Let's calculate a potential rent of $800 for such a thing. And this house has been on the market for a long time. So I believe that if you under offer, honestly, 70 grand, you could go for it. You would punch me in the face thinking you could buy a livable home for 70 grand. But trust me, the house that I bought for 40 grand, I actually bought it when it was offered for 55. So people in this area are much more prone to negotiation. Let's make an offer for 70 grand. This is my rental calculator here that I use with investors. We're gonna put a market rent of $800. We know that, first of all, we respect the 1% rule because $800 is more than 1% of 70K, which is a good start. And now we're gonna calculate everything with full-on delegation. We're gonna first make a gross rent. We know that gross, just from rent, With property manager, we're making around 10%, which is around what the stock market, let's say, is. So we are in fairly good territory. Property taxes in this case are much lower. I would actually consider around 400 divided by 6, actually 400 divided by 12, that is 40. I would say by 10, I would say 40. Maintenance reserve. So this is something that I also do, guys. Vacancy and maintenance reserve. Although you could rent the house immediately, you still want to calculate some risk factor in it. And it yields a total of 6.75% net after everything, which is not as good as I thought. Let's look at something else. Much lower than I actually expected. Let's look at something else. In this case, I believe that the market appreciated too much. So we're going to look at another kind of house, which I've been seeing a lot here, which is the auctions. We're going to look at new homes, 80K, 49, 55, 64, 85. We're going to jump a little bit lower. This is much harsher than I thought, because the market actually improved. When I bought, nobody was here. I'm like one of the boomers that came in and bought a house for 2 peanuts and now they can sell it for $1 million. Now I wish I could sell it for $1 million, but let's see. I cannot find the house anymore. That's nuts. It was here 2 seconds ago. I gotta edit this piece out. 105. Low to high, newest. Right here. Just found it. 59K. 59K is an auction. So we know already that this one will start at a much lower price. Will probably be sold at a much lower price. Same thing. Similar area. I can rent this for $800 a month. It has hardwood floors. It has an old school bathroom, which still kind of works. But the shower seems in pretty good condition. It has a basement. It has a washer and dryer. It is put for auction. It has new amenities, but it's not rented. We can get it for $800 a month rent. In terms of buying power, what would I put here as my buying limit as an auction? I would put 40K. Which you say, you can really get this for 40K? Potentially, yes. It is a much lower market than you normally think. I think it's getting a little bit faster, but it is definitely a slow market. In this case, for 40K, $800 rent, new amenities, new floors, new everything, you would have to pay cash in this case, and then you can cash out refinance at a much higher valuation. You definitely have a house that now is worth around 70K for a fraction of the price. That's normally what you do when you get something for auction. And after, property management, which is 9%. In my case, it's even 8% down in West Virginia. Property taxes, which is 40. Insurance, which is much lower than this, is actually, I pay $300 a month in West Virginia. So, sorry, $300 a year in West Virginia. So I would do 10, 20, let's say $30 a month. We have an annual return of 13% without even considering that you immediately created equity of at least 60% and that you have a house that could appreciate on average 2%. This could be a really good investment, but it requires a different kind of buying, which is auction buying. It's something that if you've never done it, could freak you out, but you're not buying something on auction for $500,000, you're buying something on auction for potentially $40,000. The number here are great, probably higher than a lot of gurus out there, which is nuts considering that this was literally looked at in the arch of 15 minutes. But it's just to show you that there are some really good properties. Would I still bought the other one if it made 6%? Yes, because considering that the area was good, I would expect a higher appreciation. And this was the net return after everything that is delegated. and it does not even consider the appreciation, which again, if you put everything together, you're around at 10%. A 4% appreciation, a 6% net return, put together is around 10%. So it beats the stock market. It is still a fairly good return. But if you can get something like this on auction, this is where you actually do some real bank money, because you have a starting point of 13.6% return with potential appreciation in an area that is a little bit more risky. You're not investing in something that is getting more population every single year. You're investing in something that is slowly increasing, could potentially explode maybe in 20 years once people realize what is happening there. For example, perfect example I can tell you is how Bill Gates mentioned a few months ago how he would like to test out the small nuclear reactors in West Virginia. But it's some of the news that I read here and there, guys. This is all for now. This is not financial advice. It's simply a general market research with the little knowledge I know about the market. And I would like to keep this format also for the next couple of markets. If you have a market idea, leave it in the comments. It could become a potential video, the next video of this, let's say, series here. If you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Ciao.